Hello, so today we're going to be doing a Honeymancy reroll game, but it's going to be the NUNU HERO Augment. So we're going to go through this one. I think there was a couple things. I remember this was a game that I played today, so my memory is pretty fresh of it. And I think I scammed so many placements this game from just positioning, so I'll try my best to point it out. I didn't have time to download the VOD because my recording wasn't working today on stream. So I'm actually watching this through my Twitch channel, so if you see like little things pop up whenever I hover over stuff, you know, it's just because it's on the Twitch player. I'm just on my Twitch VOD, right? But anyways, I digress. Make sure to like and subscribe if you like my content, and I hope that you're having a great day. I started the day off a little bit tilted because it feels like every time I stream, I immediately lose the first couple games, and I think it's just like getting used to, like, you know, people coming in, saying hi, and like doing all of that stuff. So I started the day out losing all my LP that I gained the other day. So this game, I was kind of looking for an easy game. Somebody decided to set on Golden Gala. So I think my early game, I kind of get bailed out a little bit because I think my early game was a little bit rough in this game in particular. I think that I'm just angling Honeymancy because I'm down to get like any Honeymancy +1 or any Honeymancy trait. Oh, also, I need to fix my inking because I'm on a different screen. Give me 1 second. I have to do this. Okay, now it should be calibrated, right? Like now if I circle something, it's like in the right spot. Yeah, there we go. All right, perfect. So let's see what the augment choices are. So this one, so as you can see, I get offered Sweet Tooth here. Sweet Tooth is a NUNU HERO augment. Strong NUNU deals extra damage and does all of that stuff. So that's really, really nice. The problem is that I think I had a better option here. So category 5 is a little bit risky. Draconic Mastery. Now, Draconic Mastery is fucking broken. I don't know why I didn't take it. I've been complaining about it constantly. I should have taken Draconic Mastery. The thing is that I have a bunch of NUNUs already, so I kind of got baited into saying, you know, it's less risky to take the NUNU hero as opposed to playing towards dragons. This Draconic Mastery though is fucking busted, so you should almost always take it. That's my bad. I just took this one because I said that I have 2 NUNUs, and I'll tell you what my main problem is here. If you look at my components, I don't really have NUNU components. That's the real issue that we face with this comp, right? NUNU wants to have a Warmogs ideally. You want to have a Bloodthirster ideally, and then last item is some sort of AP tank item usually. If you look at these, I have none of the components that work towards a NUNU item. That's actually really bad. You want your NUNU to be strong early. This is a comp where the NUNU has to scale really aggressively. So I'll show you like in terms of stats and just in terms of like the other stuff. Let me just do this. Open it up right here. Oh, this works out really well because it's all in my browser, so I don't have to like switch scenes on OBS or anything. If you look, I'll put Draconic Mastery first. This was the one I didn't take. I was like a 4.2. This shit is so fucking annoying, by the way. It is so ridiculously annoying because if you look at it, it's like if you have a Smolder, it averages way better. As soon as you fucking hit the Smolder, you just win out. And the thing is, this augment gives you a Smolder, right? If you get 60 takedowns, you get a Smolder. So it's like, as long as you don't like screw up your early game, you could farm out this Smolder pretty fast and you'll be fine for late game. It is so broken. I don't know why they added it to the game. I don't find it fun at all, and I should always take this. So me not taking it is my first big mistake. I also had a Gwinsu, right? On my bench, I had a bow and a rod. So even though I didn't have the actual dragon units and I had more Honeymancy units, I did have a good spot for the thing. So besides that, I just wanted to make that very clear. And I want to mention it because it's going to be a really weird point in the beginning of the video. This was one of like the first 2 games of the day. I was talking about it on stream that I'm like, that was a really big mistake. I should have just taken the Draconic Mastery. I just didn't recognize that my items were so bad for NUNU. But anyways, we'll go over Sweet Tooth now. Of course, I'm just starting. It seems like I'm starting out bitching. I'm not. I just wanted to mention like how much better of an augment that is. I purposely took a worse augments, right? Average is sub 4.5. That means that usually it's a little bit more risky. When it close to 4.5 or lower than 4.5, usually means you should try and avoid it and take something that's a little bit better a lot of the time. The problem with Sweet Tooth is that the NUNU is kind of hard to deal. It's hard to use a lot of times. If you read Sweet Tooth, you gain a NUNU. Your strongest NUNU gains 100 health, 2% damage, and per 150 health. And his heal scales with his health, right? So, the last part is the really important part though. NUNU permanently gains 35 health every time it kills with its ability. So, what you really want to do is you want to be very strong early and have this NUNU basically win you a lot of the fights. if the NUNU is doing most of your damage on stage 2, there's a good chance that you're going to get these health stacks. And that's how you make this augment go really well. This is very dependent on condition. If you're not getting health stacks on your NUNU, you are probably going to run into a situation where your NUNU late game is just going to die anyways and not going to do that much damage. They scale off of their health. They get damage amp as well as scale their healing now with health. So you always want to make sure that this NUNU is getting as many kills as possible and farming early game. And that's very hard to do. The only good benefit of this is that you usually play it with Honeymancy, and if you can get everybody else to like a stable point, then you can actually win a lot of the fights because the Honeymancy units are very, very strong. But in general, the items that you want to build on the NUNU, almost always, so it's new patch, so the numbers are going to be very low. A lot of these are really fake. I'm just going to tell you the main thing that you always want is Warmogs, right? You want Warmogs. Because Warmogs, if you read its description, it not only gives you a bunch of HP and everything about this NUNU deals with HP, it also gives you 12% max health. It scales your health higher. 12% max health basically equates to additional damage amp in the form of this item, because this NUNU gains damage amp based on their HP. So you not only do you gain a bunch of HP, if you 3-star this NUNU and the NUNU gains a bunch of HP with, like, every time the NUNU bites, basically, those bites, instead of giving it 35 HP, it's giving it scaled. It's scaling it by 12. Right, so every single HP that this NUNU is scaling is giving it more damage and more healing. So Warmogs is almost essential always. The other thing that you always want is a Bloodthirster. Obviously, we can look at previous patches and you'll see that these are usually the two main items. And then the last item is up for debate. You can make a Spark, you can make a Crown Guard, you can make something else. Bloodthirster is really good because it gives you a bunch of AP, it gives you some magic resist, but then it also gives you a health shield, which in a lot of cases comes in clutch, right? The whole point of Bloodthirster is that if you get your unit whittled down to a very low amount, that the Bloodthirster gives you this health shield, and then it can heal back up, and then you're good to go. So Bloodthirster and Warmogs are pretty much essential. And then in terms of your team builder, you're just going to play with Vertical Honeymancy, almost always, right? You're just going to pick all the Honeymancy units. Let me just put them all in here. And you're going to try and 3-star as many of them as reasonable. Typically, I think now, before people usually play around Kog'Maw, because Kog'Maw with NUNU works out really well with like the Kog'Maw reroll board. That board doesn't really exist that well anymore. Now what you typically want to do is you want to play around Ziggs and Blitzcrank. And then you just have the extra NUNU with the 5 Honeymancy. Excuse me. Kog'Maw doesn't synergize very well because you want to have Armor Shred. Or sorry, you don't want to have Armor Shred, you want to have Magic Resist, Sundering. Because if you remove magic resist, it makes your NUNU do more damage, it makes your Vigor do more damage, it makes your Ziggs do more damage. Now, there's many different variations. I'm trying to find Warmogs here, so I can just put them on the NUNU. But typically, I'll do something like this, Crown Guard, and wherever Warmogs is. Let me find it real fast. Right there. Warmogs. These are typically my NUNU items, and then Ziggs, I'll have a blue buff. The Ziggs items could be very similar to your... The Ziggs item can typically be very similar to your Vigor item, so typically I'll just build the same items as Vigor as I would normally a Vigor, and then I can switch between them. So this is obviously just 5 units. You want to play 5 Honeymancy because Honeymancy scales based on damage taken, so you make this unkillable NUNU that just is really hard to deal with, and then the Honeymancy trait gives you a bunch of damage because it got buffed. When you level, the main way to cap out this board, so the things that you're trying to put in, is Arcana units. So if you're building your board, you're typically going to try and play Vertical Arcana after that. Tahm Kench and Hecarim give you Bastion and Vanguard, which synergizes with your front line, and then usually you'll just play Xerath. A lot of times if you're carrying Ziggs, you will usually play an Incanter. A lot of times it's in the form of Karma, and then if you don't have a Xerath, or if you don't find a Xerath in time, then you can play a Chrono. And then you get the extra Chrono, which basically just gives your whole team a bunch of healing. It gives them like a 20% heal when Chrono countdown procs. But you'll play something like this. And you're always going to try and play Tahm Kench and Hecarim to be your +1, +2. Other variations of this board are very possible, by the way. What you could do as well is you can play around mages if you have that type of board set up. It is a little bit more difficult, but sometimes you drop out of Honeymancy, especially late game, and you just play around like the Vigor Vex situation or Vigor Vex setup, because you can play what's his name, Galio, that gives you extra mage, and then you'll just play like a +1 mage. But you always want to put in Bastion. If you're very high roll and you level very hard, you can also just play 4 Bastion in the form of just playing a Diana as well as some Frost units. The Frost units work really well if you have Kog'Maw items. Obviously, I'm saying itemized Ziggs here because I'm thinking along the lines of having Armor Shred at one, or Magic Resist at one point. Deletion or Sundering or Shredding, sorry. When you have Shred that you get rid of magic resist, it works really well to synergize because the Nunu is doing AP damage primarily. But if you have a bunch of Kog'Maw items, then you could play towards Hunter and Frost and cap around that type of board, especially if you don't have enough items to slam on the Ziggs as well as the Nunu. So let's go back to this game. So this is my stage 3. I kind of one lost a couple rounds. My Nunu isn't particularly strong, and my items aren't particularly great for the Nunu. I didn't get a good item on Carousel, and that's my own fault. I just didn't pick one. I prioritized gold over the item. So my Nunu doesn't have items really. I'm looking for a bailout here. 2 healthy would be really great with the Nunu comp because extra HP just equates to extra damage, and 2 healthy works really well with the Honeymancy units because there's a lot of 2 costs you typically play in the form of Kog'Maw and the Nunu. But basically I just get a bailout with Pandora's, so I just take Pandora's. The reason I take Pandora's is because I as of this point, as you can see, my Nunu has no fucking items. And obviously that's my own fault. I took this in a little bit of a bad spot. I think it was probably a little bit of tilt when I took the Augment. This game isn't to tell you like, hey, this is a good Nunu spawn, look how good I did because of a Nunu. I'm not playing it like an ego way, like the way I'm posting this video. I'm posting more of like a tutorial, and I'm explaining to you what I should have done for my early game. I definitely get bailed out a lot this game. Pandora's is a huge bailout because now I can basically just have Nunu items. As you can see, I also rolled a little bit. I'm playing around the Blitzcrank and the Ziggs as my primary units to carry. I'm not really going to prioritize playing around Vigor. If you're high rolling your Nunus, like if you have a bunch of them, then you could just roll on level 7 and just play like a mage board. You can even drop down to 3 Honeymancy and you can play 5 mage, 3 Honeymancy. That's something that people used to do back in the previous patches. But for now, I'm basically just going to try and play around 5 Honeymancy. I know it says 4 right now. I'm going to play 5 Honeymancy, a Bastion to help the Nunu because Nunu is Bastion. And I'm going to wait for these to roll into Bloodthirster first and then Warmogs. And I'm going to have some Nunu items. The reason this game is really weird to me is because Honeymancy is very broken. So if I hit, like, you know, for example, let's say you don't have NUNU HERO Augment. If you hit Blitzcrank 3 and Ziggs 3, you're probably still playing for a top 4. That is a reroll comp that is good outside of a Hero Augment. It is just a strong reroll comp to play. So if you hit Ziggs 3 and you hit Blitzcrank 3, you could just play them, right? And you'll probably have a top 4. The Nunu is like a bonus unit. So now I just have this bonus hero unit, and that's why it's still somewhat playable. The fact that it averages really bad, you want to make sure that you don't grief the rest of your game, right? My items weren't that great for Nunu, so what did I do? I made a TG for one of my other units, which is the Blitzcrank, and I made a blue buff for the Ziggs. As you can see, I'm winning some of these rounds. My Nunu has no items. My Nunu isn't scaling that much, but I do have items for Ziggs, and Ziggs is good enough for me to win a lot of these fights. So that's kind of the way that you should play it. If you look at my Nunu stats, I basically have like close to none right now. But you just have to make sure you don't grief your game, right? Like, let's say I didn't have Pandora's. You don't want to make really bad items on the Nunu. You don't want to like force items onto it where it doesn't fit in. If things don't work out, you have to hope that the rest of the board sustains itself. That's why the hero augments that are good or still average good, like this Nunu one isn't that bad, but some of the hero augments are really bad because like right now, because you can't really you're not ever stable because they all got nerfed. This one works out, and Zap Attack is also really good because of Honeymancy being really good. Outside of the hero augment, I'm still going to be able to play this for a top 4. So even if my Nunu doesn't scale really hard and my Nunu doesn't eat a bunch of units and get a bunch of HP scaling, I'm still going to have a really strong board because this Ziggs Blitzcrank setup is very strong. Now obviously I don't have 5 Honeymancy in yet. I got the Vigor. I'm debating what I slam here. I don't want to slam Archangels. Now a lot of times people will talk about Archangels being good on these hero augments. I do not believe in Archangels almost ever. Archangels is really good in certain situations where your front line or your units are unkillable, because the Archangel scales and scales and scales, and then they do a whole bunch of damage. I find that a lot of the time when you take Archangels, so for example, I'll put Sweet Tooth and I'll put Nunu. Sorry, I'll put like Nunu. I'll put Nunu 3, right? I'll just put like Nunu 3, and then we'll go on items. Like Archangels is plus Delta. What this means is that it's usually your placement or the 3,000 games this patch that have been played with it do worse if you have Archangels, right? If we go back to the previous patch, Archangels is plus Delta. If you go back one more patch, I'm pretty sure Archangels is going to be plus Delta. A lot of times you just want Warmogs, you want Bloodthirster, and you want something like Crown Guard, right? Crown Guard's really good. I think even Spark is pretty good. The reason that these items are a little bit better is because Crown Guard gives you a bunch of AP, and it gives you like health shielding. It gives you other utility. Archangels, all it gives you is AP, and it scales with time. But the problem is that like if you're in late game fights or like towards the end of the game where everybody's boards are really complete and very strong, a lot of times Archangel doesn't have enough time to scale up to the point where it's worthwhile. When you put an Archangel on a NUNU, what you're trying to say is that my NUNU is going to one-shot something, or is going to do so much damage that is devastating because I have Archangels. If the NUNU gets overwhelmed and Archangel doesn't stack high enough, it's going to be useless. So I never put Archangels on this. So that's why I didn't slam it even though I had it on bench. I'm prioritizing making a Warmogs. I am very stable. This Honeymancy board, especially with 5 Honeymancy, is extremely stable on stage 3, right? I'm not stable because I have NUNU Hero Augment. I'm stable because I have Ziggs upgrade and all of these other shitters. This Honeymancy board is very strong, right? Nobody's a 3-star yet. I just have Blitzcrank 2, I have Ziggs 2, I have Kog'Maw 2. Everybody's upgraded. It's very strong. And when I say stable, it doesn't mean I'm going to win every single fight, but I'm going to win a lot of them that I can preserve HP. And basically, I'm just going to roll to make sure all of these work. Now, here's an important note, by the way. So, if you look at my positioning, it looks really weird. This is a neutral round. I clump everybody here, and I put my NUNU over here. NUNU, I'll show it here. I think I show it to my stream when I mention it. I gained a stack. The NUNU stacks work on the neutral rounds. Maybe I'm wrong. Like, I might have misread it. But I'm pretty sure I checked before, and I checked now. So, what I do is I isolate the NUNU to make sure that I can get a kill on one of the wolves to get an extra stack. Just to try and optimize a little bit. It's not necessarily the greatest. It's like it's not an always food, but it's a sometimes food. Now, this is a part where I have a lot of components here, and I don't want to have them sitting around waiting for Warmogs this whole time. I make Titans. Titans just got buffed. I'll go back to the stats again. It's so easy because now I'm just going back and forth because they're just both available to me. In the current patch, it says Titans is really good, but it's a very small sample size, right? So I'm not actually sure if it's good. To me, it doesn't make sense because Titan seems very understated. It gives a little bit of attack speed. It gives a little bit of attack damage, which is useless. And it gives a little bit of ability power. And it gives some armor and magic resist. But NUNU is a Bastion, so they're already going to gain a bunch of armor and magic resist. So usually Titan is pretty ass. I don't know why it's good. It might just be like a component economy type of thing because you don't really have a good use for chainmail or bow in this comp a lot of the time. So maybe that's it. But it says it's good in the stats, so I was willing to try it out. And like now I'm getting to that point of stage 4 where my board's going to start falling off, right? My board's going to be a lot weaker than some of the other boards. So I want to make sure that I'm not over-greeding my components. Even though I have Pandoras, the biggest problem you can have with Pandoras is just sitting there and not making items. That's the problem in almost every elo, in almost every single situation. If you just sit there and you never make items, it's very easy to just like lose the game because you're just like, you know, chilling too long, right? Also, I don't have the ability to properly position my thing, but that's fine. So you want to make sure that you're still making items. Titan says that it's good in the stats. It's good enough for me. I'll just put it on the NUNU, have 3 items on NUNU, and just not worry about it. I'm going to slow roll a little bit here because I have a lot of HP. If I was lower HP, I would probably roll a lot deeper, but I am 74 HP, so I am down to just chill for a second. And try and find this NUNU eventually. Obviously, I didn't find that many NUNUs. I haven't been rolling all that much. But I am spending a lot of gold trying to upgrade all these other units. I'm just going to try and upgrade all the Honeymancies to 3-star. And then I'll push levels for Arcana. That is my strategy for the rest of the game. Here, the Olaf got a really nasty wrap on me, which is a little bit unfortunate. And I think my NUNU's going to get overwhelmed. He has Hunting Frenzy, so he just got the Execute. My NUNU couldn't heal in time because the Twitch just hit him. Or the Nomzi hit him and he just died. Oopsie, my bad. But soon we're going to have to roll down pretty aggressively to try and hit our 3-stars. Typically, when you're playing a 2-cost reroll or a 1-cost reroll, you usually try and win as many fights on stage 3 so you have HP to work with. And then stage 4, you have to hit your 3-stars really early on. So here I'm just going to roll. I'll put away the markers so that you can see the rolling. But I'm basically 1 off Kog'Maw, 2 off Ziggs. I'm going to roll a little bit. I hit 1 more Ziggs here. So now I'm going to roll pretty deep until I hit a Ziggs 3. We find the Ziggs. And we're going to chill for a second. Now, this is really important to note, by the way. So, a lot of people tell this, I feel like there's a lot of tutorials talking about Ziggs. You want to play Ziggs usually in the middle. His beam travels to the furthest unit and has a lot of travel time. So, usually you put him in the middle so it has a little bit less travel time. And the angle is a little bit better because it's easier to snipe the backline unit. when he's angled. It's similar to how Lux was played, except Lux went through all the units, but like Lux, like I'm talking about Lux in last set, in set 11, if you played set 11, Lux was very similar that she targets the furthest unit, and you had to position her a lot of times in the middle to get better value off of that unit. But this is the problem, right? In a lot of matchups, you have to be very cognizant of if your Ziggs is going to be under fire. Because then if your Ziggs dies early in the fight, you lose so much damage that you otherwise would have had that it's not worth it. Even though the optimal position is to put Ziggs in the middle, you're going to lose way too many fights. So that fight I lost. I had a good chance of winning that fight, but I lost that fight off rip because he got a really nasty wrap because I mispositioned my front line a little bit. I want to have the NUNU here, I just didn't position it well enough. But because I have the Taric here, they killed it, they overwhelmed, and they wrapped my back line. And then this guy dies instantly because he's not tucked in the corner, super safe and cozy. So once that happens, I decide that for the rest of this game, I have to really scout and pay attention really hard. I'm basically just rolling here. I have Kog'Maw as a possibility. I'm rolling till around 30 gold. Right, I can roll once or twice more because I found this Nora, so I have 5 gold to work with. And now I'm just sending it because, you know, we're just trying to find this NUNU 3 on 1 off. Just make sure that I win. And I hit it, which is good. Obviously, this was a little bit of a lucky roll down, but I did wait a really long time to roll. And I also have been slow rolling for most of the previous stages. My econ is a little bit destroyed, but I should be relatively strong now. I still have Ziggs in the middle here. This fight, it doesn't matter that much because the only person that can really dive me is Katarina, but Katarina dives to the largest clump, and I think that my clump is a little bit further away. You can see that the Hecarim jumped on me though, and that's like a big mistake. I'm probably losing this fight because Hecarim jumped on me. So that's 2 fights in a row I lose because I have Ziggs in the middle. I should have scouted, I should have played a little bit, like, this fight I thought it would be okay to play Ziggs in the middle. Just don't even bother with it. I'm going to be honest with you guys. It's not worth it. Just put Ziggs towards one side. Tuck him in the corner a little bit, right? Give him some time to do some casting and to do some damage. Also, I made Morello just to have anti-heal. I know it's not a really great item on Ziggs, but I want some anti-heal, and ideally, I also want some shred, either a shiv or some other item, which I hopefully will get eventually in this game. But here, what I'm trying to position for is Fiora now. So I have Ziggs fully in the corner because I think I'm fighting against a Fiora or an Olaf. So this fight, there's an Olaf, and the other person in my pool had a Fiora. Fiora dashes to the largest clump, and Olaf jumps around and resets on kill. So I want to make sure that I have these units here, because if you look at the largest clump is somewhere around here. Right? I want to make sure Ziggs is as far away as possible so he doesn't just get randomly killed by the Fiora. You see here, this Olaf, he killed a unit and he reset to this backline. That's fine, right? I don't care if these units die, because I want to make sure that even if he dives the backline, the Ziggs is far enough away that he'll go back to the NUNU even if they do die. Right? That's why I'm positioning as such. Ziggs is better in the middle, yes. I'm sure that you can find it, and there's some stats that say Ziggs will hit the enemy unit for more damage if he's in the middle. You have to understand that in certain matchups, especially with Fiora, right? Fiora's a big one. I haven't fought a Fiora yet, but Fiora will literally dive right around here, and it's very easy for the Fiora to reset and kill your backline instantly. I'm tucking the Ziggs in the corner for the sake of, hey, I will not have as much damage in this particular fight. I will not have this much damage. Like, you know, the Ziggs might take a little bit longer for the bullet to reach the enemy carry, but at the same time, my Ziggs will be safe. And that will mean that, you know, the damage that I lose from, you know, the bullet not traveling or the bullet hitting the right target or whatever, right? The proper angle. I don't care what the excuse is. It's like, just fucking keep them safe, right? Priority number 1, your carry shouldn't die instantly, right? I got the charm for multiple components, so I'm just going to take that. I'm rolling a little bit here. I just want a Vanguard, honestly, just to give my Blitzcrank. I have a Blitzcrank 3, by the way, because I rolled for it. So the Blitzcrank is going to help with the Honeymancy damage a lot. Here I'm checking what my components are to see which one was a backline Thieves Gloves. So I can just put, because I got the Thieves Gloves charm, so you can check them ahead of time and then put them on the unit. Once again, there's an Olaf here. I don't know if the Olaf is going to reset to my backline, so I want to keep the Ziggs in the corner. There's still a Fiora player in my pool, so until I fight the Fiora player, I'm not really going to change my positioning. I want to make sure that my largest clump is without the Ziggs, right? I don't want my Ziggs anywhere close to my units because I want, if I fight the Fiora, if she ends up diving the backline, even this Diana dives the clump as well, I'm pretty sure. But I want to make sure that this is my clump and then my Ziggs is safe here, right? Nobody's ever going to try and hit this Ziggs. And the only thing I have to watch out for is a Rise or Karma, which I think there's one Karma in the lobby. I don't remember if there's a Rise. And this Nunu, we haven't been talking about Nunu. This is a NUNU Hero Augment game. I'm talking a lot about Ziggs as the carry. Nunu's just kind of tanking and doing their work, right? This is a scary fight though, because this Olaf might reset on my backline, especially with Prowler's Claw. This is actually RNG, so he dives to this side, which is actually very lucky. There was a chance there. I was a little bit sloppy because I had the dragon, so I thought I would be fine. I was a little bit sloppy. This guy's strictly positioned to fuck up my board in particular, because he positioned really well for my board. But the Prowler's Claw made the Olaf jump all the way over there, so we're fine. We kind of just skated by right there, so that's great for us. But anyways, I'm probably gonna scout soon to see the other things. I don't want to fast forward or do anything like that. But I'm rolling for a good charm here. The reason I'm rolling so aggressively for charms, by the way, is because I did not expect to do this well. I kind of expect people to beat my board. A lot of times when you have NUNU 3, now obviously I have Ziggs 3 and I have Blitzcrank 3, and 5 Honeymancy is very strong. I'm very scared about this NUNU, because the NUNU itself doesn't have a lot of, the NUNU doesn't have a lot of stacks. So I feel like late game I'm gonna lose to a lot of these boards. Like, I don't think I beat this fairy guy. Like, I might beat him this turn, but it's really difficult. Anyways, I backlined these two units as well because there was another Fiora / Olaf player. There's two Olaf players, and one of them was in my pool, I'm pretty sure, from before. So I wanted to make sure that I did not have the how do I phrase it? I wanted to make sure that the Olaf doesn't do what the other Olaf did that had the Prowler's Claw and just kill these two units and then dive the backline. So I just put them away from the NUNU to hopefully get everybody to target it, which I think is a little bit more reliable. But like I said, I lose to that fairy guy. It's just very fucking strong. So yeah, we'll hope for the best. There's a Shiv here. I really want the Shiv. It's on a Smolder, which doesn't really matter, but Shiv is Shred, and that's what I really wanted on my board. Before I just made the last Ziggs items, I didn't want to greed for Shred from before, so I just made Jewel Gauntlet, which is good enough. And I can put Shiv on anybody. I have a Kog'Maw 3, so I probably itemize the Kog'Maw here. Even though Shiv isn't the best Kog'Maw item, it's good enough. And I find a Tahm Kench. So this is what I was saying before. Cap out your board around Arcana. So in this case, I'm playing Tahm Kench with the Hecarim, and I'm selecting Tahm Kench, by the way. So NUNU scales off HP. What's his name? Hecarim gives durability as well as attack damage. So attack damage doesn't matter for my board because I'm primarily doing AP damage. The other thing about the Hecarim is that durability is usually bad on Honeymancy units because Honeymancy trait does damage based on the damage that you take. So if you put durability on them, they're effectively taking less damage, which means as a Honeymancy trait, they're going to deal less damage. So durability is typically bad. The HP, even though it's not a lot of HP, my NUNU scales off HP and my whole board becomes tanky, and HP synergizes really well with Honeymancy in the form of giving them more damage soak. Like, they're more like spongy. What's the word that they call it? Like they can soak up way more damage because they have more HP, right? As much HP as they have can translate into damage in the form of the bees later. But anyways, I'm starting to get like confidence that I'll actually go top 4 this game. It's actually kind of weird. The lobby seems like they're in a very rock, paper, scissors around me. I'm just kind of chilling here. I didn't have a good spot. I took Pandora's. I kind of forced towards this comp. Pandora's was a really lucky find for me. But Ziggs is broken and Blitzcrank is broken. So my board is still strong even without the hero augment. So now all of a sudden, I'm like decently strong out of nowhere. This is bad positioning, by the way. I'm good against the Fiora because the Fiora is never going to dash to my Ziggs. But this Karma might snipe my backline. It might snipe my Ziggs a little bit. I should have more damage than this guy because of the Honeymancy trait. And now we're getting to a point where the game is lasting long enough where they didn't kill me off. And now my NUNU is scaling to be a problem. So my NUNU actually is getting like a sufficient amount of like the scaling that I should have had in stage 2 and stage 3. My NUNU is now getting it, which is kind of funny because we're reaching like stage 6 and the lobby was very close. So a lot of people lived for a very long time. So now my NUNU is actually like, you know, an averagely tanky NUNU. What I was really worried about for much of this game, which is why I've been rolling so aggressively. I'm still on level 7, buying charm every round. The reason I'm doing all of those things is because I thought I wouldn't make it this far. I thought that I would lose 1 or 2 fights. I thought I would lose like these 2 fights or maybe these 2 fights, and I would be like over here just playing for 4th. But I ended up winning some of those fights really nicely. And especially against like the Fiora player, right? A lot of these fights, if I put Ziggs in the middle, I'm pretty sure they would lose. There was some fights that I threw from having Ziggs in the middle. So we just kind of like shuffled around a little bit. Like the mid game, like my stage 5 was very well played for what it was worth. And here I can't really level to 8 really easily, so there's no real reason to do that. Here I'm just looking for any Kog'Maw item, honestly. Gunblade's good enough because Gunblade just helps my board out a little bit in terms of like healing. And then once again, we're fighting a Fiora player and a Karma player. I don't want to have Ziggs anywhere near the middle because it's a Fiora player. As you can see, I'm kind of just clumping everybody here, so the Fiora is always going to get stuck on this side, as well as the Diana potentially. My other units are going to wrap, so for example, this Tahm Kench and this dude are going to move a little bit. I think a better positioning would be to have the Tahm Kench more on this side, so that maybe he can stun the back line. But we're just hoping to kind of get them stuck on this NUNU. And the NUNU now is pretty tanky. It's hard to kill because of the extra HP and the healing. So my NUNU does do a significant chunk of damage now, which is really nice. So this fight I won. I think this guy was the strongest in the lobby. I don't see myself ever winning that fight, but it just works out. For that guy, he needs to basically, like that other guy that I was fighting, like that Preserver guy probably should have won the lobby, but he needed to place his Karma on the same side as my Ziggs to try and snipe it. Because basically the Fiora won't be able to kill the NUNU in time, and if my Ziggs gets enough casts off, eventually the Honeymancy damage from just the NUNU soaking up damage is going to kill everybody. And this is where this Augment becomes really broken. If your NUNU is tanky enough, if you make it to this point where the game goes on long enough that your NUNU has enough stacks, you're just going to kill people based on Honeymancy. Like, look at this guy. This guy has Arcana in. He has a Xerath. You know what I mean? He literally has a Xerath, and he has a stacking Gwynsu Callista. The problem is that if he can't kill the NUNU is going to hit back so fucking hard because of the Honeymancy trait. Like, look at this. I literally won off Honeymancy. Right? Because my board is all 3 stars. They're hard to kill. The NUNU killed all of the front line. I actually scaled large enough so that the NUNU doesn't die. And now I'm fighting this guy. This is what I mean by it's like a little bit of a rock, paper, scissors. This guy's board is ass. Like, there's no way I lose to this guy. The 2 guys that I needed to win against were the Karma player and the Callista player. And because the Callista player, it might have been fight RNG because my, like, you know, obviously the timing of the Honeymancy towards the end, if Xerath got off another cast, I would have lost to the Callista player in the last fight. But especially the Preserver fight. From that guy not putting his Karma on the same side and trying to snipe my Ziggs, my NUNU now, like I said, because the fight went on long enough, the NUNU made it to that point of stabilization, right? Even though my early game was really bad, because the game lasted so long, my NUNU now is tanky enough. Because a lot of times late game, your NUNU isn't going to get stacks anyways. And as you can see, I just won. I don't even know how I went first this game. This was not a firstable game. But obviously, Honeymancy is very broken. Honeymancy is very strong. And this was like the little NUNU kind of pseudo guide. It was actually really funny. I was flabbergasted on stream. I was like, how is that even a first? Anyways, the game crashed, so we can't see the final board. But anyways, like I said, typically when you're playing NUNU, you just want to play around vertical Honeymancy, right? You just want to click all the Honeymancy units. Honeymancy trait is very, very overtuned right now, in my opinion. Maybe you don't feel that way, but they made it so that they tried to make Honeymancy kind of stand on its own as a reroll comp. To me, it's like very, very overtuned. Zap attack is very strong. The NUNU one is less strong because it requires so much of the NUNU stacking. I would not suggest taking it unless you have a NUNU item to start, right? Unless you start the game off with a Bloodthirster, for example, or you start the game off with like a Bloodthirster, Warmogs, ideally. Like, you have really strong NUNU items like that. Also, I always have trouble finding Warmogs. Unless you have really good NUNU items early, I wouldn't take the NUNU Hero Augment anymore. It's not as broken as it once was, but it really requires that scaling. If you don't have the scaling, if you don't get the kills early with the NUNU, then a lot of times the NUNU will just fizzle out and die. A lot of those fights you saw, my NUNU lived with like 1 or 2 HP. That's pretty much just from the stacks. That's just from Warmogs with the gaining HP from the stacks. if my Nunu didn't stack up and the game didn't last that long, a lot of those late game boards, my Nunu would have died way earlier, and it would have costed me the game. I went first out of nowhere. We'll take it. Whatever. GG. Anyways, if you like that video, make sure to like and subscribe, and thank you for watching, and I hope it was somewhat informative. I made previous Nunu guides. This is going to be an updated one for the new patch. Yes, it's still playable. Make sure your spot is good, and also don't prioritize Kog'Maw and these other units. Just become really, really stable with Ziggs Blitzcrank, and then hope that you have the Nunu items and build towards the Nunu towards your mid game, and then late game just transition to playing Vertical Arcana, and it should cap out your board fairly high for a consistent top 4. Anyways, thank you for watching, and I hope you have a great day, and I'll see you guys around.